Well, howdy. I think you have to agree it's been quite an extraordinary year, or I should say almost 15 months, from a disaster with the black bale of TM brand peat to our polypeat experiments to try and fix the problem, which has turned out to be a bit of a disaster. Like they don't seem to grow any roots in the polypeat, so it's brought us the idea that aeration is important, and probably more important than we even thought. So we've sort of gone through this idea of having these mesh pots, but we think that's a bit hard and a bit expensive, so we've come to this idea of having one of these cheap polyurethane foam sponges in just a milk bottle, cut down milk bottle, which will have its base cut out and a piece of fly wire put in there, and just to put this in here, cut it off flush with the top, and to say hold it like this while you put the soil in, tamp it down, and when you let go you have a bit of an air space there as well, and that will basically hopefully take the air right down the sponge to the base of the pot, because we're coming to the conclusion that the yellow fungus is the one we ought to go after, because this yellow fungus is the one that seems to respond to magnesium. As we discovered, okay, the polypeat experiments weren't wonderful, but we have been able to discover that the serpentine responsive CPs seem to be obligate-to-Samalic species. In other words, they really need some sodium there and definitely a lot of magnesium there, and other ones which are tolerant, serpentine tolerant species, they seem to be facultative Samalics, that they will actually respond to having some sodium and some magnesium there. And strangely enough, Drosophila hamiltonii seems to respond to magnesium, not so much salt, but mainly magnesium. It's what we're tentatively calling a malic species here. And strangely enough, this is really strange, Drosophila adelae, because that's the only one we've been able to experiment with, is tolerant to potassium amended magnesium, and somewhat to salt, but it's mainly, it's definitely seems to be a malic species, and so we're going to see how far we can push it using this idea, because we went too far with the polypeat. I think 8% was 8% hydrogen peroxide was so strong that it basically destroyed the structure of the peat, so you ended up with no air spaces in it, and the roots can't grow without the air. So we're trying to take the air right down to the bottom of the pot. I mean, you could use air stones, but you can't really put an air stone in every single pot in your greenhouse, because logistically it's just too much of an exercise. So we thought, well, we want some sort of manual system, and this seems to be the simplest that we could come up with. It's just a sponge to take the air down the sponge so that it's always right down to the pot, and then of course this will then sit on your floor foam box. So we're coming, and the yellow fungus, the unknown yellow fungus, that likes it drier than the penicillin. The penicillin seems like it's slightly wetter, whereas the yellow fungus definitely does prefer. So I'm going to have to go to 3 blocks, even though I was trying to cut down on the expense by having only 2 blocks. I'm going to have to go to the 3-block system I was trialling last summer, which ones where you saw the yellow fungus growing on the bottom of the pots. It seems to be just the right water tension that they prefer. So in other words, you have 3 blocks and the water level up to the level of the first block. That seems to be the sort of on the borderline of drying out, but such that they never do. Sort of water tension that the yellow fungus needs to grow. It also seems to like potassium amended magnesium. It seems like that, so we can actually now make a true serpentine fertilizer. And what we're going to do over this coming summer season with all the new peat that we're buying at the moment is to see where do we put the magnesium all the way through the pot, and just put some of our blue dawning fertiliser on the surface of the pot? Or do we just use ordinary peat and just put our blue dawning on the top, or all these different combinations? We're also going to determine whether the yellow fungus prefers chloride over sulfate, or whether it likes a bit of both, and whether this chloride-sulfate ratio has any effect on this so-called blue, light blue coloration you get on these sort of serpentine plants. I think later on in the video I'll show you some clips of various plants you can see around nurseries and things that have this particular blue colour, because I've got this. My parents bought me this rolling pin when I was in my early teenage years, which has that Bartram print of the Venus flytrap on it from 16 or 17 something or other, and it's in colour. It's a direct copy of the original lithograph that's been, or transduction that's been put onto this porcelain rolling pin. And strangely enough, it's got these bluey green leaves and even blue bands on the outside of the trap, which I think is probably a bit over the top. But I'm thinking, this original lithograph was made centuries ago, when there's no prejudice to alter it at all. I mean, what possible reason would they have to distort the colours? So okay, the colours may be slightly out, but what I think they're trying to, really trying to translate is the fact that it probably is a true serpentine plant, and it has some of this blue coloration in it. And we've got this hypothesis that the blue colour may be controlled by having a high magnesium, which we can do now. We can actually get a true high magnesium using potassium amendment. We can actually get up to those levels, which is previously unthought of. And it's a low sulfur, so we think it might be high magnesium, low sulfur, and the low sulfur levels we think are what cause that funny, unusual toothpastey green. But on top of this, when you have a high magnesium, we think that's when the blues will come out, and you have the sort of bluey green leaves. And if we can do that, well, that will definitely make a front cover of CPN if we can actually get to that point, because that will definitely prove the point that it's definitely a serpentine plant, and things go differently when you get them into those sort of situations of high magnesium, low sulfur. Because we've always wondered, why do they supposedly in the wild grow in only like 5, 10, 15% organic matter, and the rest being sort of quartzy sand. So we think, and if you've ever tried that, which I've tried, as soon as you put it into that sort of ratio, it just stops growing, and over the next few weeks it just goes downhill. So there's no way you can actually grow a Venus flytrap in that 5, 10, 15% peat and sand ratios. They just don't grow. So there must be more to it than that. So what we might do is we'll work out this, all this, what the fungus likes, the yellow one, because we've come to the conclusion through the polypid experiments that it's the yellow fungus we will be tracking down. How do we make that one grow better? We don't think the penicillin, because it likes it slightly wetter, we think it might be either there's some sort of combination going on there, like the penicillin grows, and then as it gets drier, the yellow one grows, and it may live off some of the organics that the penicillin has extracted or broken down. We don't know whether that's the situation or not. So we decided that it's this yellow fungus that's probably more important, because it definitely likes it in a more drier situation, and also like the penicillin, it grows on the surfaces of medium, but seems to like it more airy than even the penicillin likes to grow properly. So we feel that probably predominates in these sandy situations in North Carolina, especially when in the summer when it rains like every day or every other day. You get that sort of wet, dry sort of situation. So we do feel that it's the yellow fungus we ought to go after. And so we'll be doing those sort of experiments over the summer season. Now that my greenhouse is almost finished, I've just got the whirly birds on. I've got 6.3 tonnes of water in there. So far it hasn't been over 31, but that was only when I had 3 whirlybirds on now. With the 5 whirlybirds on there, it hasn't been above, like the hottest day we've had so far was 2 days ago. That was 28, and we went down to Phil Schmidt's place, which you see on the video, towards the end of the video. That was 28 in my greenhouse, whereas Phil Schmidt, he was having 30 during the day and 28 in the afternoon. So we've got that comparison now between my greenhouse and his greenhouse, and he's got all these fans and water system and that, whereas I've just got the whirlybirds and the water in there, and I'm getting roughly the same thing but without the humidity at the moment. I don't know what will happen once I put the plastic over the top. We'll have to see, but I reckon that I might it might elevate it a little bit. But remember when I first put the holes in the greenhouse in 97-98 season, I could only bring a 46-degree day down to 39, you know. So what's that? 7 degrees. Now, so in other words, if it goes from 28 up 7 degrees to 35, I can put the drippers on and bring it down another 2 degrees, so that brings it to 33. So if I get 33 on a 46-degree day, that's still a pretty good achievement, considering you're not using any electricity. It's just static amount of water in there. Whirlybirds, which once they're paid for, are virtually free after because they just run and run. And the only time they ever stop is 5 minutes after sunset, and then they start up again, and 5 minutes after rain. And talking about rain, we've officially now had the third wettest spring on recorded record in South Australia. It's been raining every few days since about the second week of August. It's just rain, few days, sunshine, rain, few days, and it's been going on, and it looks like it's going to rain this afternoon, and we don't know. We probably get rain on Christmas Day, and we had a smattering of rain on Christmas Day in '94 for about 30 seconds. But I think we're actually going to have a true proper rain, maybe even a sun shower. But we don't know how long this is going to go on for, and how it's going to affect the bush, because we haven't had a decent bushfire since this Ash Wednesday 2, and with all this extra rain and extra growth, it could be a really bad fire season this year. So you never know. If you hear reports of Adelaide ringed by fire again, what's that, since 1982? Yeah, so yeah, it's almost 20 years since Ash Wednesday 2. So if you hear reports of Adelaide being ringed by fire again, you know it's the reason it's due. We've had such a weird spring, and probably going to have a weird summer as well. It's I don't know. It'd be just my luck after having all these disasters with the TM brown peat, the failure of the poly peat experiments, to have a summer that doesn't have a 46-degree day, so I can't work out whether my greenhouse works or not. But anyway, that's basically what it is, and what we've done, what we've discovered so far. The magnesium, the potassium-amended magnesium is very interesting. It may be important for Sarracenia, but I haven't got, as I said, I haven't got any Sarracenia to experiment on as yet. Donnie's only got some seedlings, but yeah, I would reckon it would be important for Darlingtonia, because they are, of course, known as salt licks over there. So the deer actually eat them for the salt. So they obviously do have salt in them. But we've worked out all that sort of information. Now we just have to combine all this information together and get it all working. So we've come a long way, but it definitely looks like we are going places. You just have to tie all these disparate endeavours all together and hopefully produce some spectacular plants. We'll be able to grow plants that no one's been able to grow really well before. It's really weird things like Adelaide. You wouldn't believe that Adelaide could handle that sort of level, you know. 18.5 grams to the litre. I mean, that's just, isn't that unheard of? 18.5 grams to the litre. I mean, you think that's just crazy, but they sit there and take it, and they seem to look a lot healthier. But until we get them into this sort of stuff and get them back into some proper peat and sand and some better ratios, we're going to go to a ratio of 5 parts peat to 1 part K140, 1 part Poly-X, and 1 part K55. We're coming to that sort of reason that that's probably a really good mix to keep the moisture going right to the top of the pot, but keeping it very well aerated at the same time, making use of this system, of course. So when you get another tape, you'll probably get another tape in probably March of next year, and that'll have all these experiments in there on its own. You'll be able to see how it goes. And of course, we'll be going right through the summer season, so I have all the. And I'll better check that this tape hasn't run out. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the show, and look forward to hearing. Oh yes, I'll give Richard. I'll give you a ring in a few weeks' time once I've got the plastic on, and you can get those fly traps you put in the fridge for me and send them down, and I'll be able to pop them up and see how they go. Okay. The other thing that's we discovered is that pygmies, like Pygmia, Lake Badger hybrid, Pulchella hybrid, they all seem to respond to the magnesium too. So this is another radical departure. So we'll look into that more probably next year when we get a new crop of Gemmy. But because basically this year was just working out all the levels and finding out that, like, strange, they can go like from 10 grams per litre all the way up to 33 grams per litre depending on what plant you're using, but for the Venus flytrap the optimum seems to be around 18.5 grams per litre, which is quite incredible. And it also gives us ideas that in tissue culture the sugar level they have at 30 grams per litre may be too strong. You might actually get better growth in tissue culture if you lower your sugar levels. Because this is keeping in mind, of course, that the osmotic difference between sugar, which is single organic molecules, and salts, which are divalent. What I'm trying to say? What I'm trying to say is that the sodium chloride has 2 ions, whereas sugar is just single molecules. So you have to adjust for that. But even keeping that in mind, we feel that Venus flytraps ought to grow better in tissue culture if the sugar level is slightly lower. So yeah, all this research is definitely making slight improvements in all the different areas. So eventually, hopefully this coming season and next season, it should all come together. And yeah. If we can get a blue fly trap, I mean that'll be quite an achievement, I think, whether it's possible. But if we can do that, then that will definitely make a link with that lithograph that was etched out 400 years ago. Or it's 400 years ago now, probably 400 years ago now. I forget the exact dates, but which would prove that the people back then weren't lying. They were actually just sort of trying to represent what they saw, or what they've been told had been seen in the wild. So yeah, in these places like Hampstead, North Carolina, and I've forgotten the other place that's in my serpentine book, true serpentine areas within North Carolina. So and that's apart from the Appalachian Mountains, which are just have a band of serpentine running down them, a bit like the mountains in the South Island of New Zealand. Well, they're basically just almost pure serpentine, those mountains in the South Island of New Zealand. But anyway, good luck, and I look forward to receiving your videotape you said you were making for me. I look forward to that. You said it'd be ready around Christmas time. So, oh, and I'll include the in this box I'm sending to you. I'll include the U-Trick book you wanted to have a look at, and these tapes. I put one in there for Richard and yourself, and I'll chuck in some trial runs of what we've been doing. with the fertiliser. As I said, it won't be the final formulation, which will probably turn out next year when we work out whether they like, when this yellow fungus likes the chloride or the sulphate, and what does it prefer, and whether that will actually give us the blue sheen to the leaves. I don't think you actually get blue banding on the traps, but I think what they're trying to say is more common. Because if you think of it from the logic is, how many CPs have blue flowers? I can only think of one pinguicula that has a blue flower, so that the insects which are attracted to the blue colour of the leaves won't eat the flowers, and vice versa. The insects which pollinate the flowers aren't attracted to the traps, so they don't get lost in the traps, you see. So you could probably have two paths, groups of insects, ones that pollinate the flowers and ones that get eaten by the plant and are attracted by the blue colour, because insects can see in that sort of region. So you might find that under ultraviolet light, once you can get this blue colour in the plants, you put them under ultraviolet light and it will become really obvious, a bit like some of those photographs in the Juniper and Joel book. I keep forgetting that third author, whatever his name is. Is it Roberts? Juniper and Joel? I can't remember now. Anyway, I'll bid you, mid-morning I should say, bid you mid-morning from 7 minutes from Mount Bold, South Australia. Anyway, see ya, enjoy the show.